I think there's a difference between the leader you are and the leader you strive every day to be. I know that I am a consistent and reliable leader. When I am tasked with something, I will get the task done in an efficient and timely manner. I'm very gifted in organizational skills, and I am able to use those skills as well as my personal drive in order to accomplish tasks. I know that I am an inclusive leader, and I value diversity and uplifting a mindset that ensures everybody is included and valued. However, as I've been leading more in the church, one of the things I've been working intentionally to do is to be a vulnerable leader. I grew up in the church and I love the church, but I think too often our churches are not where people, especially young people, are finding authentic community, or where they feel the love of Christ. We hear anecdotes of children who find holy community at camp or at campus ministry, but not necessarily in a congregation. Many churches are currently panicking and asking, where are the young people? How do we bring them in? And immediately they think we need to hire a praise band or change everything about themselves in order to be what young people want. However, I've become more and more convinced that it's not our traditions and the liturgies that needs changing. It's the culture of the church that needs changing. And I think that's the challenge congregational ministry will have to face in the coming years. How do we unleash God's community here in this place? Whether it's true or not, the perception of the church is that you need to put on your Sunday best and pretend to have the perfect life in order to be accepted. If our leaders, our pastors, are willing to be vulnerable, to tell their stories, and in doing so, create the breathing room people need to be their authentic selves, the breathing room for the Holy Spirit to enter in, maybe that's the first step to unleashing God's community here in this place. It's not our worship that needs changing, it's the way we interact as people. When I was a youth worker for the ELCA congregations in Fort Collins, I was in charge of planning high school youth group during the month the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault allegations were coming out. The Sutherland Springs church shooting happened, and the day after, my university's library was evacuated due to a bomb threat. I knew I wanted to talk about these things with our youth because this is what actually mattered to them, but I had no clue how to do that. How could I have meaningful and productive conversations about such terrible things when I didn't have the answers? I don't think there's a perfect way to talk about injustices in the world, but we certainly tried. We talked about sexual assault and violence that occurs in our world, about where God might be in the midst of that trauma. Were they perfect conversations that solved all the problems of the world? No, not even close. But they were authentic conversation in which students could express their fear, their outrage, their confusion, and we became closer for it. We ended the night with communion, with the promise that Jesus is here, and Jesus is working in this space. In this past year, in my new role as pastoral assistant, and with the encouragement of Pastor Rick Wrighton of Trinity, I've tried to be vulnerable when I can and share my story, especially in sermons when appropriate. And as a result, I've learned more about the people around me than I think I would have before. One week, I shared about my father being a pastor turned drug addict, and how I am now being called to the vocation of pastor, and how I've grappled with that, and also found reconciliation through it. After the service, I had different people come and speak to me about their own family struggles and the way that it has impacted their lives. One week, I talked about my own baptism, and I had multiple people come and excitedly tell me about when and how they were baptized. And for that, I am privileged and grateful. It is a small start, but somehow God is working through me and the congregation of Trinity, and that's a lesson that I will take with me wherever I am called to ministry. The people of the church need a way to connect with each other, more now than ever. We need a way to be able to share stories, and in doing so, find joy and healing and reconciliation through the community of God. I think the vulnerable leadership of pastors can be a small catalyst towards letting the Holy Spirit do her work.